Elephant, I can say they're really very intelligent, and they do mourn like the way human beings mourn. They can even mourn like almost like 6 months. Go back to the same place mourning. They know she died here, even after 6 months. Even they have very good memory. What elephant they have very poor eyesight, but they have very good memory.
For 21 years, Katito Sayalel has been part of a group studying the elephants in the Amboseli ecosystem. It is a major transition from what brought her here initially to work as a housekeeper in one of the lodges inside the Amboseli National Park. Now she is a research assistant with the Amboseli Trust for Elephants, an organization that has been working here since 1972.
So it is my passion, and I've been falling in love with elephants.
What is this one called?
This is called, she's a female, she's born 2004.
How do you know that?
We take pictures, we have ID photo, we ID them and take the photograph, so we know each an elephant. When they are 5 years old, they all have ID photo, and we have our census. This is a CIC family. This is her name. Elisha, yeah. Yeah, Elisha, yeah. She's pregnant.
Oh, nice.
How I can tell, that is her first pregnancy, born 2004.
She was born in 2004?
2004. We have all the record. This is her, yeah. This is the year she was born.
Okay.
And they made her called Three Holes. And why she was named Three Holes, when Cynthia saw her, she had three holes in her ear, and they still remain the same even since I joined the project.
So where is she now,
the matriarch could be, there she is. Over there, the big female with beautiful tusk. Yeah, she's as I say, you see, the one protect the family. Now she's behind the whole family. Sometimes you can find her at the back, or in the middle, or in the front. Protect the family.
Her work as a researcher has enabled her to interact with numerous people. Hollywood celebrities, for instance, Lupita Nyong'o, here seen shooting an announcement for Wild Aid, and the First Lady of Kenya, Margaret Kenyatta, when she launched her campaign against elephant poaching, Hands Off Our Elephants.
I think it's a combination of the publicity. I think the First Lady and her support has been phenomenal, and I think all of these things come together.
Dr. Richard Leakey, the chairman of the Kenya Wildlife Service, appreciates the work of activists and researchers like Katito in combating poaching, but he says there is room for more.
What I think we haven't really paid much attention to is that our neighbor, Tanzania, has sadly had massive poaching in the last few years. I mean, 30, 40, 50,000 elephants have died. Much of that ivory found its way out to the east and to China through Kenya. There was a lot of trafficking.
While the researchers may keep an eye on an individual elephant in the wild, their work is often rendered futile by corrupt government officials who aid the poaching and trafficking of wildlife trophies.
Many of the outlets, airport, Mombasa port, some of the smaller jetties and ports in places like Shimoni and other places, bribery plays a big factor, and I think the control over what comes in and what goes out of our main port in the terminal areas on the quaysides is very serious.
While poaching has reduced considerably in Kenya since 2012, it is the trafficking of ivory and rhino horns that is now a big problem and keeps Leakey worried most of the time. In the last 2 years, there have been major seizures of ivory suspected to have originated from Kenya through the Mombasa port. Sources who have spoken to NTV insist that it is almost impossible to ship anything illegal without the aid of corrupt Kenya Revenue Authority officials. While the shipping process involves several players, the verification of the contents of a particular container has always been the function of the Kenya Revenue Authority, and perhaps that is where the problem is. All containers shipped out of the country have to be packed and sealed in the presence of customs officials. They are also tasked with inspecting and scanning all exports and imports to detect any illegal shipments.
I believe there is a massive criminal cartel managing most of what goes on in the port. Now, clearly, if ivory can get in and get out, that's happening. We are not responsible for the port, and it's very difficult for us to know, but so much ivory has been seized, and we know that so much ivory seized is a small percentage of what must have gone.
In a bid to speed up the shipment of tea, Kenya's highest income earner, the government struck a deal with tea exporters that would see the produce go unscanned. Unscrupulous dealers quickly took advantage of this loophole. In April 2015, a shipment of ivory disguised as tea was caught in Bangkok. Suspected corrupt customs, port and shipping agents were arrested and now face conviction in Kenya.
You do business with him?
Corruption in wildlife crime is a very huge driver of the offense, and especially in terms of transboundary wildlife, transboundary trade in illegal wildlife products. We have seen it in Kenyan courts quite a number of times, and the problem is that it's very nuanced in the sector. Corruption hides behind incompetence, and it also hides behind lack of capacity.
Elizabeth Gitare is the legal officer at Wildlife Direct, an NGO in Kenya that campaigns for the rights and protection of wildlife in the country. We caught up with her in Mombasa, sitting with the prosecution in the trial of Mohammed Ali Faisal. Faisal and his 5 co-accused are charged with being in possession of and attempting to traffic 3 tons of ivory from Tuda, a suburb of Mombasa. Because of the nature of the evidence, the court has had to adapt, and all the sessions are now being held here in the open, next to the strong room where the evidence is always kept.
Na Faisal. Mara Faisal umeona msikitini sana. Watu waswali naye msikiti Budushi.
Gitari's work involves not just listening to the arguments in the court, but also looking out for instances which may raise eyebrows. Such cases include that of Nfali Dukure, a Guinean national who was accused of trafficking rhino horns, but who was deported out of the country before his trial was concluded. Nfali had earlier been arrested in Bangkok with nearly 10 kilos of rhino horns in his traveling luggage.
And the law provides that if you're a persona non grata in Kenya and you have been charged with an offense, an offense under the Kenyan laws, the trial process ends, you're convicted or acquitted. If you're convicted, you're sentenced to a jail sentence, you're given a custodial sentence or not, and once you have cleared your responsibilities under that conviction, then you're deported back to your country.
It has happened on more than one occasion. 2 Chinese men, Gao Gongjian and Wang Ta, were also deported before their case was concluded. They had been charged with illegal possession of ivory. In the first trial of Faisal, presided by the interdicted magistrate, he was let out on bail. Yet a higher court had denied him the same. Another suspicious ruling allegedly allowed the suspects to tamper with the crime scene.
So all of these things, it's very possible to be benevolent and say there is lack of capacity in government on how to handle it. But we have to be the devil's advocate here and really ask, is it lack of capacity or is it something a lot more sinister?
According to the Kenya Wildlife Service, there were 146 prosecutions of wildlife crimes in 2012. In the same year, only 37 were convicted. In 2013, 212 were prosecuted and 97 convicted, while in 2014, 257 individuals were prosecuted and only 40 were convicted. In the same period, there were 15 acquittals and 18 withdrawals due to insufficient evidence or suspects not showing up in court. But what worries Kenyan campaigners more is what is happening in Tanzania. The nation has lost 60% of its elephant population in the last 5 years. In Selu and Ruaha, some of the biggest elephant homelands in the country, the situation is dire. No one knows that story better than Hamis Kagasheki, the country's former Minister for Natural Resources. His campaign, dubbed Operation Tokomeza, meaning Operation Terminate in 2013, intended to eliminate poaching in Tanzania and eradicate entire networks from the poachers to the politicians and some of the country's rich men accused of being part of it.
Actually, I remember one of my friends telling me, saying that, Kagasheki, you are actually now moving into a most dangerous territory, meaning, of course, you are moving into an area whereby You have the big boys there, and they have their business there, and they have their money there. And I said regardless, because I had a duty and I had a responsibility. But of course they proved that indeed, yes, they are powerful, because I could see what actually happened to some of us.
The operation to end poaching was hastily stopped because it was accused of human rights violations such as beatings, sexual assault and even murder. Kagasheki and 3 other ministers were dismissed after a motion was tabled in Parliament, but 2 years after his dismissal and after losing his parliamentary seat, Kagasheki still defends his operation. He blames his exit on politicians who are benefiting from poaching.
We actually came to learn that it was obvious that our fellow politicians were definitely on the payroll of these poachers, because it is not even a secret that it has been said time and again that there are some members of parliament who were actually paid in order to, I wouldn't say crucify me in the parliament, but certainly to make sure that I was removed in the government. And this, quite a number of members of parliament, they actually said that this kind of thing was happening. Therefore, obviously, if, for example, it is being said that money was given and a lot of effort was made to make sure that I am removed from that portfolio, obviously it makes me believe that I was a stumbling block into these efforts. Actually, the language they were using was, they were saying that walipewa bahasha, you know, bahasha meaning they were given some money in order. The poachers were giving bahasha to the then, of course, members of parliament.
But the biggest proof of corruption driving the poaching and trafficking industry in Tanzania was in June 2015, when these 3 Chinese men were caught brazenly flying out of Tanzania's Julius Nyerere Airport with these bags of ivory in tow. It was clear that they had the blessings of corrupt officials in Tanzania. The Chinese men were searched and arrested upon arrival in Zurich. Sadly, for campaigners like Mwarabu who want action, the 3 men have never been brought to Tanzania to be charged, even though the security and airport officials seen here were dismissed and charged.
The hands of the past government, of Kikwete government, he probably had his hands tied up with everyone, because you had effectively a lot of very high-profile kingpins and high-profile ranking people buying ivory, not obviously going to hunt for the elephant, but buying ivory. Tanzanians, not just Chinese, and selling it to their Chinese friends, since they were very close to the Chinese. The Westerners.
Michelle Lanfrey is a director of Askari Maritime Logistics, a security company that, together with the government's National and Transnational Serious Crimes Investigations Unit and a donor organization, PAMS Foundation, have joined hands to end poaching in Tanzania. They have taken a more pragmatic approach, Michelle says. They are targeting the actual poachers and the middlemen.
So what has NTSCIU done is to cut the grass under the feet of the important people. So today, if you have $1 million and you want to buy ivory in Tanzania, good luck, my friend. You can't do it. It's very complicated and very difficult and extremely dangerous, because we know and we are overlooking and so much the criminal gangs and the networks, that if you show your face or you say to the wrong guy that you want to buy $100,000 for ivory, you'll probably see NTSCIU knocking your door. And today, there's no protection at no levels.
The new approach may be criticized for not going after the politicians and major businessmen suspected of poaching and ivory trafficking. They include the Secretary General of the ruling party in Tanzania, CCM, Abdul Rahman Kinana, whose shipping companies were said to have moved tons of ivory netted in Vietnam in 2009, in a report by the Environmental Investigations Agency. Several other members of parliament had been mentioned.
It's not what is important. Important is to stop the killing of the elephants. It's not to start arresting a lot of big people, and then that was a very bad habit that has been ongoing for ages. No, for ages it has been ongoing anyway. Yeah? Authorized with a blind eye, by the authorities, whoever they are. So anyway, so many people have done it in this country that what do we start to do? To say we want to arrest 20% of the MPs and a few ministers, a few PS, doesn't make any sense. You know? So it doesn't make any sense politically. Trust me, it doesn't make any sense. And in this Israeli wisdom, definitely wisdom, we are cutting the grass under the feet of anyone who wants to deal with this criminal activity today.
A few days after we recorded this interview, Roger Goa, a helicopter pilot, was shot dead by poachers as he was transporting an anti-poaching unit. Lanfrey and his men clearly have more work to do. While they have arrested big names suspected of facilitating poaching and trafficking of ivory, including Yang Feng, a Chinese nicknamed the Ivory Queen, and this man, Boniface Mariango, nicknamed Shitani or the Devil because of his looks, the work may have just begun.
Many of the big elephant herds in Tanzania are gone. We still have many elephant in Kenya. Are we sure that these same people who are killing elephant there are now not going to come here into our country? And I think they will probably try. I think we will meet them. And I think they will find Kenya is not Tanzania. We shall see.
They tried. In February 2016, a rhino that normally roams between the Masai Mara in Kenya and the Serengeti in Tanzania was killed by poachers near the Kenyan border.